Hello, it's Julie from Spellbound, and today I'm going to show you the first part of a short course in how to make chevron banding and adapt it to make different designs. It's one of my favourite stitches, partly because it's quite quick and partly because it's so versatile. Now, to show you the basic technique, I'm going to be making a plain band using bugles and seed beads. I'll be making one in red, orange and pink, but you can see here we've got one in blue, teal and turquoise, and this is the same technique again, but using just seed beads. Now, to make my band, I'm going to be using 3 colours of size 3 bugle beads. Now these are about 7mm long. I'm going to be using orange, pink and red, and I'm going to be using a seed bead to form the corners of my stitches. You can see them dotted along there. I'm going to be using this sort of magenta in a silver lined seed bead, and this is a size 10. Now, you don't have to use bugles, you can use any beads you like. As you can see here, little strips of seed beads instead of bugles, but this shows the technique really nicely. I'm going to be using a thread that tones with all of my beads. Now I'm using a 9mo D and I'll be using it double. However, if you like Fireline or Durathread, which are a little bit more resistant to rubbing and the sharp edges of beads, which sometimes you can find on bugle beads, you might want to use that instead. I've got a keeper bead and I'll be using a size 10 beading needle. I've prepared my needle with a double thread. I've cut 3 meters of thread, I brought the ends together and I've tied a keeper bead about 25 centimeters from the cut ends. Now, unusually, for me certainly, I'm going to be using a double thread to make the weave. This is partly because I'm using bugle beads and they can be a little sharp on the edges, so I want the extra strength, but it's mainly because chevron weave tends to be a little bit wobbly if you only do it with a single thread. So double thread will give me more firmness and it means I can pull the thread tighter. Now I'm going to refer to my seed beads here as my link beads because they're going to be the corners of the triangles where we link the triangles together, and the bugles are going to be my spacer beads. I'm going to swap between the colours and I'll be using 2 of one, then 2 of another, then 2 of another, and then repeat, and that will give me my pattern along the band. Now the first stitch is a different sequence to all the others, and it starts link, spacer, link, spacer, link, spacer. First, then I'm using 2 of one colour, and then I'm going to swap to 2 of this colour, so the next one of this colour will be on the next triangle. So I've got link, spacer, link, spacer, link, spacer. This is going to make the first triangle. Bring it down to the keeper bead. And I want to pass through this first link bead here away from the following bugle. So I point away from the triangle. There you can see our first triangle has formed. Now I need to flip it over because this pink bead is going to form the side of my next triangle. So I'm going to borrow this one and I'm going to add one here and one here. So I'm going to put on a spacer, then a link bead, and then I'm swapping to the next colour and I'm going to put on a spacer. So all the rest of the stitches are spacer, link, spacer. Now to complete the triangle, I've got two sides here on my needle. This is the third side, so this is the link bead I need to aim at, and I'm pointing away from the triangle that's going to form. I'm going to pass through there and you can see it pulling through. It always looks awkward, this first one, because it wants to flip over. There we go. So that's our first triangle. This is our second triangle. You can see the threads coming out the top of the triangle away from the form we've just made. Right, so it's it's spacer, link, spacer. This is the triangle we're going to form here. So this is the point of the triangle. We're borrowing this one, adding two more, and there you can see the next triangle. So we borrowed that one from this triangle and we added two to make the new one. Right, onwards. So it's spacer, link, spacer. So we're borrowing this one, we've got those two on, so this is the point of the new triangle, point away from the new triangle, and that's the next one made. Spacer, link, spacer. This is the new triangle here, so this is the bead I'm aiming at. Away from the new triangle, and that's the next one made, and that's Bella the dog. Right, back to beading. Bella the dog has eaten the postman or something similar. So I'm going to try the next triangle. So we have spacer, link, spacer. Pull them down, you can see where the next triangle is going to be. This is the corner of this new triangle. So we pass through that away from the new triangle. Spacer, link, spacer. This will be the new triangle, so we're going to pass through this bead away from the new triangle. Spacer, link, spacer. This will be the new triangle here, so we're going to pass through this link bead here to complete the triangle. And you can see the pattern is starting to form. If we concentrate on the orange spacer beads, the orange bugles for now, you can see I've got two here, then it flips to the bottom row, then it flips to the top row. The red ones, they start at the top, then flip to the bottom, and then they'll go along the top row. So using three colours gives you this undulating effect with the thread. So it's three colours of link beads, three colours of spacer beads, and I've kept my link beads all the same. I'm going to continue with the weave until I've got a length that's long enough to make a bracelet. Then I'll show you how to adapt the end so that we can add our clasp bead. So I've made my weave long enough to go around my wrist, and now I'm going to add my clasp bead. Now you could use a normal clasp if you wanted to, but I like the fact that using a bead means there's no metal being added to my design. Now the important thing is that we get the clasp in the middle of the width of the band. Now as we've got a set of triangles coming up towards the end of the band. The end of the band is slanted, so I need to even it up so I can get my clasp bead in the middle. And I'm going to even it up using extra link beads. Now I've had a little play and I've worked out that if I put 7 of these link beads on, so that's 7, then my clasp bead, and then a stopper bead, that will bring me approximately to halfway across the width of the band when the clasp bead is pointing in a line with the band. So I'm going to come back through the clasp bead and back through 1 bead behind it. And so I'm pulling up that last bead, that last link bead, as an anchor. I now know if I put on 4 seed beads, 1, 2, 3, 4, so 4 link beads, and I pass down the side of the last triangle, so I'm going through link bead, spacer bead, link bead, and pull that up. That brings my clasp bead to nearly the centre. Now I think actually I only need 3 link beads here rather than 4. So I'm going to pull it back. Now because we're using a double thread, I need to pull the thread backwards and then the eye of the needle backwards through the beads. I can't take the needle through point first because that will almost certainly cause a knot. So I got 4 beads on, I'm going to take 1 off. And go back down the side of the triangle again. That's better. That's more central to the main axis of the band. Now I've got a lot of thread left over, so I'm going to take the opportunity to strengthen the weave before I finish off. So I'm going to work back along the weave, following the same thread pattern. Because every time I make a stitch, I make my work firmer, stronger, and more durable. You'll also find that it will help to establish this pattern of triangles a bit more. So I'm going to work back all the way that I can along here until I've just got enough thread to finish off with. And when I get to that point, I'll be back to you to show you how to finish off the thread. Right, I've brought my thread back through the weave as far as I can, and I'm left with just a short length, so I now need to tie off the thread. So I'm going to pick up the thread in the gap where I am at the moment. So that's the thread between the beads here. Pull through until I leave just a small loop, and it's a double loop because I'm using a double thread. I'm going to pass through that loop 2 times. That makes a double knot. Pull really tight and then pass through the next bead along the weave. And I'm going to repeat that knot. 1, 2 times through. Pull it nice and tight and through the next bit of the weave. That's really firm now, so I can snip off the thread neatly. So that's that end of the bracelet done and that end of the thread finished. Now at the other end we've got to put on a bead loop part of the fastener. Now I've already removed the keeper bead and I've passed both ends of the thread in the same direction through my needle so I can work with both threads at once. I now need to do the same adjustment that we did here at this end of the bracelet. So I'm going to put on 7 seed beads to start with. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now I need to put on sufficient beads to make a loop that would just fit over this crystal. Now I know from experience it's going to be 16 or 17. So 1, 2, 3, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Right, now I put on 7 beads to start with, so that's 4, 7 beads, so it's that 7th bead I want, and I'm going to pass back through the 7th bead to pull up the loop. I now need to check to make sure that's a good fit for my clasp bead. Now it's quite tight, but I want it to be tight. That's a little bit too tight though, so what I'm going to do is pull the needle back, eye first through that 7th seed bead and put on 1 more. That will make all the difference. That takes it from being too tight to just about right. So there's my loop. And now if you remember, we adjusted at this end, we changed from 4 seed beads to 3 seed beads. So I've got 3 seed beads on, and I'm going to go through the end of the first triangle, and that is my bead and loop clasp. Now I need to reinforce the loop, so back up through all the beads. And I'm not going to have a very long tail on this end to reinforce the bugle ladder, the chevron weave. Now I might choose to add on another thread just to reinforce it. I'll see how it feels, but let's finish off this end first. So we're going to do the same as we did before. And pick up the thread between the beads, pass through the loop 2 times and pull down the knot. Pass through the next bead along the weave, repeat the knot, make the loop again, 1, 2, and pass through the weave. And trim. And here is a completed bracelet, and I've got one here made in blues and greens. I think they're rather nice together actually, and this is a variation on the theme. So here we have the link bead is a size 6 seed bead, and the spacer beads instead of a bugle bead are smaller seed beads, in this case size 10. So I've used 3 on the edges and 2 in the gaps, and there's my triangle. And you can see, because I've used 2 different colours of link bead, they've alternated along the edge. So same technique, completely different look. I hope you'll give chevron weave a go, and next time I'll show you how to do a double row so we can start to think about making wider bracelets and chokers.